if I have the problem 4/15 plus 3/5, I want to see what this equals to. What is my sum? And in order to add fractions, I have to check, do they have the same denominator or do I have to find a common denominator? So when I look at my denominator, it's 15 and 5. So I know that I can't just drag it across or just add. So right, my answer is not going to be 7/20. You can't just add. I see that I have to find a common denominator. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to list out my multiples of my denominators. So my first step is to write out my two denominators, the number on the bottom, so 15 and 5. And I'm going to start listing out my multiples. So multiples is when you're skip counting. So 15, add another 15 is 30. Count another 15 is 45. Count another 15 is 60. And I'm going to list out my multiples for 5. So again, I'm skip counting by 5. 5, 10, add another 5, 15, add another 5, 20, add another 5, 25. I'm just going to list out maybe 4 or 5 multiples for each for now. And what I'm going to do, I'm going to look through my list. Which numbers do I see that's the same in both my list? So in both the top and bottom, which number is in common? And I can already see that I have a common number of 15. So that is your common denominator. That's your new denominator. So what we did here is we're finding equivalent fractions. So I'm writing out my new denominator so I can find my equivalent fraction. So I want to change 3/5 into a fraction that has a denominator of 5. And I want to change my 4/15 into a fraction that has a denominator of 15. And as you can see here, the denominator is already 15, so you don't have to change it. It stays the same, 4/15. But we want to change 3/5 into an equivalent fraction with the denominator of 15. And so maybe you want to cover up this part, and that's essentially what you're doing. And we're used to these problems. We're going to see 5 times what number gives me the answer of 15. 5 times, so 5 times 1 is 5, 5 times 2 is 10, 5 times 3. 5 times 3 is 15. Whatever I multiply on my denominator, I'm also going to multiply in my numerator. Remember, whatever I do to my top, I'm going to do to my bottom. Whatever I do to my bottom, I'm going to do to my top. So now when I multiply 3 times 3, that equals 9. So I have my equivalent fraction of 9/15. So now what I can do is rewrite my equation from the beginning to have the same denominator. 4/15 plus, I'm not going to write 3/5. We found that equivalent fraction of 9/15. So now, because I have the same denominator, I can drag over my denominator and add my numerator. I can just add across. So 4 plus 9, 13/15. So 4/15 plus 3/5 equals 13/15. So I'm going to show you one more problem. My problem is 7/9 plus 3/6. So again, my first step, I'm going to make sure my denominators are not the same. So they're not. I have to find a common denominator. And the answer, right, we can't just add across. The answer is not 10/15. We have to find a common denominator. I'm going to list out my multiples for my denominator. So my denominator is 9, and then another denominator is 6. Those are the denominators that I have. I'm going to list out my multiples for both. So multiples is when you're skip counting, 9, plus another 9 is 18, plus another 9 is 27, plus another 9 is 36, plus another 9 is 45. Maybe you want to do one more. Maybe you only want to do 5. I'll just do another one. And now I'm going to list my multiples for 6. 6, when I skip count and add another 6 is 12, 18, 24, 30, and 36. So I listed a few multiples, and now I'm going to check. Do I have any that's the same, that's in common for both of these lists? And when I check, I don't have another 9 here. Ooh, I have another 18 here. I have 18 that's common up there and an 18 that's common here. And I'm going to keep checking. Ooh, and I also noticed that I have another common number between those two lists. And now, because you have two common numbers, you're going to pick the lowest one. So 18 is less than 36. So we're going to use 18 as our common denominator. So now, just like we did before, I'm going to rewrite my problem in my notebook. And I'm going to write right next to it my new fraction with the denominator with my common denominator. So what we're doing here is we're trying to find an equivalent fraction for 3/6 with the denominator of 18. And we're trying to find a new fraction that's equivalent to 7/9 with the denominator of 18. So let's start with 3/6. I have 3/6 equals something over 18. I need to solve this, and one method we know is 6 times something is 18. 6 times 3 is 18. What I multiply to my denominator, I have to do to my numerator. What I do to the bottom, I do to the top. So now when I multiply 3 times 3, that equals 9. So I just made an equivalent fraction here. 3/6 is equal to 9/18. So now I'm going to move over to my other side. I'm doing the same thing. I'm solving 7/9 is equivalent to what 18ths? And again, what I can do is think, 9 times what gives me 18? I know 9 times 2 equals 18. What I do to my bottom, I have to also do to my top. Whatever you're multiplying to your numerator or denominator, you do to both. So now I can multiply across. 7 times 2 is 14. So I just made an equivalent fraction for 7/9, which is 14/18. So now what I can do is I can rewrite my equation with common denominators. So 7/9 is now 14/18 plus 3/6 is now 9/18. Now when I try to add across, I see that I have I have the same denominator, common denominator, so I can just drag it over, bring it over, and I can just add my numerators. 14 plus 9. And it gives me 23/18. And now you can see that my numerator for this problem is actually larger than my denominator. And we talked that that's called an improper fraction. And we're going to be talking about this in a little bit. So for now, having a numerator that's larger than your denominator is okay. But that is called an improper fraction, side note. But this is how you're going to solve your problems. You're going to write out your multiples. You're going to find one that's common in both and lowest. You're going to then create equivalent fractions and rewrite the problem to solve for the answer. So 7/9 plus 3/6 is equal to 23/18. 18th.